Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to Andrew's Life. I hope everybody's doing great so far today. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Saturday so far. I have a video which I have just got done putting together, basically explaining my going through my financial journey with you guys, and hopefully you guys get something out of it. Now, in this video, I will be explaining my financial journey from 2008 to 2010 during the last recession, basically. And I was temporarily for a short period of time homeless during the last recession. And this video will walk you. This video will kind of on this video I will kind of take you guys step by step of how I became homeless. Everything that led to me becoming homeless. Now, this video, as you guys can see, it's going to be a long video. It's not going to be the kind of video that if you're just looking for quick answers, you're looking for me to just get to the point. It's not going to be that kind of video. It's going to be long. It's going to be stretched out. I'm going to be doing a lot of explaining. I'm going to be doing storytelling. So if you're looking for a short, straight to the point video, this is not it. I'm going to let you know that right now. So, if you're looking for that, then keep on moving. If you want to listen to my story and you're hoping to learn a few things, then stay on. Because I think some of you will learn a couple of things out of my story. At least I hope so. So let's get into the video. Hey, good day, folks. I hope everyone's doing great today. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Saturday so far. I just want to tell you, guys my story, my financial journey, if you will, of how I became homeless during the last recession. Now, a lot of you say that this recession is going to be worse than the last one, and I do agree. Some of you say that this is an economic reset more so than it is a recession. However, you want to look at what's going on right now, whatever, to each his own. But some of the same things that went on during the last recession in terms of people's lifestyles is going on today. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I mean, all that talk about cryptocurrency and all these other and silver and whatever. You know what? That's not what I talk about. That's not my niche. So we'll just keep it there. So anyway, now during the last recession, and like for me, my downfall began, and I'm gonna say it began in 2008. See what happened was I purchased a brand new home in Lewisburg, Tennessee, brand new, very first person to live in a home to live in a house. Now, before I purchased that home, I used to own a condo in Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is a suburb of Nashville. And I kept a couple of jobs for the most part during my stay in Tennessee. I worked in Nashville. And my full time job, I worked as a custodian, which I was making pretty good money. And I worked part time as a CNA, which that money it was okay. And then sometimes I would do a little stuff on the side, like cut people's yards, just for some extra income. So money wise, I was bringing it in, but not enough uh, to accommodate for my lifestyle at that time. So anyhow, I had a condo in Hendersonville, Tennessee. The people there were nice. The association fee at that time was $100 a month, and then by the time I moved out, it went up to $125 a month. Which whatever. I ain't tripping. Well, I kind of was tripping, not over the association, but just the fact that I didn't want to live in a condominium community. I wanted to have my own yard. I just did not want to live so close to where my next door neighbor was literally the next wall over. Now, and granted, this is back when I was a lot younger, and I loved my hip hop music. So some days I get home from work, get carried away. I play my music up all loud. I mean, it wasn't too bad for me, but there was a couple of times that my neighbor then came and he kindly asked me to cut my music down, so I did. And then I got to thinking one day, you know what? I need to have a regular house. I prefer to have a yard to where I can just run around. I'm not run around, but I can just walk around and just just have a yard. You know, have an actual driveway. So that was the reason why I chose to sell my condo in Hendersonville and buy my house in Lewisburg. Now, when I first started looking at houses, I looked all over the place. I looked at houses in Gallatin, but I didn't really care for Gallatin to be quite frank with you, so I didn't buy nothing in Gallatin. I looked at other smaller communities within an hour of Nashville, couldn't find what I wanted. And then finally, I came across this house in Lewisburg. It was a brand. There's some other houses in Lewisburg I looked at that were pre-existing constructions, but the ones I wanted all had contracts on it, so I was unable to buy any of those because other folks can beat me to the punch. So I looked at another house, brand new build, and it was one of the type of deals. So yeah, okay, yeah, I like this house. I like this little lot. The people around seem nice. So I decided to put an offer on the house. They accepted it. And just like a dummy, I put a full price offer on the house. I'm thinking it's a brand new house. What could possibly go wrong? Well, I had a couple of indications of this house being a piece of garbage. The one in Lewisburg I'm talking about right now. I mean, I still hired a home inspector to inspect the house because that's what you're supposed to do. So the home inspector, he inspected the house, and I'm thinking, okay, this should be an easy inspection, nothing's going to be wrong. Well, he came to me and he told me, well, for one, the crawl space didn't have a vapor barrier, and for two, they did not bother to attach the back deck to the house. Now, as minute as those things appeared to be, those were looking back at that situation. Those were just two signs that these builders were lazy. They did not pay attention to detail. Now, haven't I took a moment and looked around the corners of the houses, I would have realized that the house was built bad because none of the like whenever you go to a corner of a house, your corners typically are all 90-degree angles. Now, in the house I had in Lewisburg, all the corners were not 90 degrees. Some were, a couple may have been 90, but then you had some that were like they were below 90 degrees. So that should have told me right there that the house was not built correctly. And then after I bought the house, my neighbor who I met, they came over and told me that all the debris from the construction site, they poured it into my porch, like where my porch was at. They poured all that in, and then they put the concrete on top. So at that point, I'm like, man, what the fuck? So I knew that house was built wrong. But it's like whatever, man. I'm gonna still try to enjoy the house. It is what it is. I signed the dotted line. I agree to pay the mortgage. It is what it is. Well, as time went by, things started going wrong with the house. Like the very first, like I would say, the very first thing that started going wrong with the house was a couple of my windows started to not open and close like they're supposed to. One of my doors started to not close properly, and then shingles started falling off the roof. There's a few that fell off, and I would say the summer of '09, my air conditioning quit working, and then come to find out it was out of Freon. And whenever you have a newer air conditioning unit, you should not be out of Freon after only one season. And then I found out that the air conditioning system for the house was meant for an apartment, not for an actual house. Now, this house was 1,000 square feet. And then there were some other things that were going on with the house. And then my neighbor, I had a new neighbor. There's another house just like mine that was sitting below me on the bottom of the hill. He bought that house. And me and him, we talked like once a week. And he told me that one day he went to go into the bathtub to take a bath and he done fell right through into the crawl space. And he asked me, hey man, has it happened to you? And it's like, no, it ain't never happened to me. So then I look at my bathtub and then I decided to take a walk in the crawl space and see what's going on and see if that could happen to me. And so, yeah, okay, I see why it happened to him because the way they installed the bathtub, they didn't install it correctly to where it was secure to where that stuff wouldn't happen. So, make a long story short, all this crap started going on, and I tried to reach out to the builders to come and do what they were supposed to do because the house is under that year warranty, but they continued to ignore my call. So what happened was I ended up having to do the repairs myself because I just could not afford to wait for the builders. Because my plan was I'm gonna just do what I gotta do for myself, document everything, and I'm gonna take them to small claims and sue. And having I kept the house, that's exactly what would have happened. But again, as time went by, my money got worse. I just financially, I was not doing good. I mean, my finances were not good. I was poor at money at that time. So it got to the point where I had to take on extra hours at my second job. So that's exactly what I did. It got to the point where I was working over 70 hours a week and my health started suffering. I mean, it was to the point where there was a couple of times I ran red lights because I was so tired and just wasn't paying attention. And then half the time, whenever I got home, I'm wondering, man, how the hell did I get here, man? It's like I didn't even see myself come here. I was so tired. Fortunately, I didn't wreck my vehicle. I didn't hurt nobody. Didn't hurt myself. Didn't damage no property. But I was just sleeping. I mean, I was just super tired, and half the time I done fell asleep behind the wheel, which that was crazy. So this went on for several months. I mean, I would say this went on for almost a year because even when I had my condo, I was working like crazy. Finances were crazy, and I was just reckless with money because not only did I have this brand new house, but I also had two cars on a car note. I had a Chevy Cobalt custom making monthly payments on that, and I had a Ford Explorer Eddie Bauer version, making payments on that as well. Because the Chevy Cobalt I purchased that after I purchased a condo in Hendersonville, and then after I purchased my house in Lewisburg, I decided to buy my Ford Explorer, which so yeah, I had two car payments and a mortgage payment, and I was trying to keep up with the repairs on the house that they built poorly, which is why I no longer buy a brand new home, which is why I caution people that do buy new homes. And then one day, it was like in 2000, it was like, I want to say it was like the winter of, well, fall. It was late fall of 2008. It was getting into the holidays. I was on my way to work, and some truck driver runs to the back of my car. So he runs to the back of my car. My car completely turns the other way, facing the opposite direction on the road. Fortunately for me, the truck driver was a decent human being. He got out, made sure I was okay. He asked me if I needed medical attention. I told him, yeah. Can you call, 911? I need to go to the hospital. My back is hurting. So he called 911. Well, the before the ambulance came, the Tennessee State Patrol came to assess the accident. And he came, the Tennessee Patrol, he came, he talked to the truck driver, he talked to me, and I don't know what was going on with this with the patrol person, but he seemed like he wasn't having a good day. I mean, he was just a complete asshole. The truck driver was actually nicer to me than the patrol officer was. So finally, the paramedics came. They put me on the little stretcher, took me to the hospital, and I had some. No, that checked me out, and I had to get some minor procedures done to get myself back to normal to where I could return back to work. So I took a little bit of time off of work due to my back. And making a long story short, so while all this was going on, I mean, I was thinking, man, how am I going to be able to pay my bills? So I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. So during the time I was off of work, I decided to go ahead and file bankruptcy. I was ashamed to do it. I didn't want to do it, but I didn't feel I had a. I didn't feel in my situation I had much of a choice. So I went on ahead and filed bankruptcy. It's like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care, man. It is what it is, man. I mean, my money just bad. So it is what it is. So I filed bankruptcy. Initially, I filed a Chapter 13 because I did not want to lose my house. Well, my bankruptcy attorney at the time, uh, he done, he's like, well, what do you think your house is worth? I told him what I paid, and then it's like, well, let's see what your house is worth. So he typed it up online. My house was worth. Now, remind you, this was not even a full year after I first closed on this house in Lewisburg. But when he ran the numbers, the value of my house was $10,000 lower than what I owed on the mortgage. So I was upside down on that house at this particular time. So he's like, "Well, if I were you, I'll file a Chapter 7." Now I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and file a Chapter 7. It is what it is, because I wanted to start fresh. I wanted to get my life back on track and my money right, and start getting adequate sleep at night. Like the days I took off of work, I felt good when I woke up because my sleep was on point. My back was hurting like a mother, but I felt good other than that because I was, my sleep was on point. So I decided to go through, file the Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And of course, when you file bankruptcy, you got to go through some type of forget what they call it, but it's some type of a credit course that basically educates you how to manage your finances moving forward so you don't make that same mistake again. Well, so, and the course is required before you get your discharge. So I decided to go through the credit course by Dave Ramsey, which is how I first got introduced to Dave Ramsey. And I was like, I mean, because at first I started half-heartedly watching the course, just watching it enough to answer the questions at the end. So I'm watching this course, and I'm sitting there, I'm drinking some juice, eating some popcorn, just sitting back and watching this course like I was watching a movie. And I'm like, man, this dude, okay. I mean, now, I'm not saying that I agree with everything Dave Ramsey does because I don't. I mean, but at the time, this is my first time watching anything of Dave Ramsey at all. So I started watching. It's like, man, this is dope, man. I mean, he talking about, uh, if you don't have car payments, you can do this and that and the third, and you can have X millions of dollars in 20, 30 years by the time you get ready to retire. It's like, man, that's what I'm talking about. So yeah. I started getting into it like on something real. Like honestly, I was getting into that course more than most people get into their movies, than most people get into sports. So I was like, okay, okay, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm thinking about my life moving forward, just being financially free and having all this money stashed away and saved up, and just I was like, yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. So okay, I did this course and answered all the questions and all that good stuff, and then ultimately, I went in front of the judge, and he heard my case, and then ultimately I got my discharge letter, and I was so happy when I got it. Now I knew after I got that discharge letter, I was getting ready to watch myself lose everything that I thought was mine, such as my house and my two vehicles at that time. So I knew at this point I needed to take action. Like I need to take action. Like for one, I need to be up out of the house. which at that time I decided to go out here and look for an apartment. And there was an apartment in Nashville that I was going to move into because at that time my rent would have been lower than my mortgage, and I wouldn't have had to drive an hour back and forth to my job at that time. And then, as far as my vehicles, I decided to let go of both my vehicles because I put my house and both my vehicles on my bankruptcy along with all the credit card debt I had. And of course, I put all my hospital bills on there too. So at this point, I said, I'm letting go of all this shit. I don't care. So that's the reason why I never sued the builders because it's like, I'm letting the house go anyway. So, man, I'm not about to go through all that madness. So So I decided to go out and I found me a minivan. I found it on Craigslist for he was asking $500, but I talked him down to $400. And this van was a hoopty. It was a true hoopty. The power it had no power steering, and whenever you turned too tightly, the van would stall. All four tires were bald, so I immediately had to get some new tires. I was so broke I didn't even have money for new tires, so I had to go get used tires. And this van also leaked antifreeze. I mean, it leaked. I mean, I mean, the funny thing is, it never overheated, but it leaked antifreeze. So I'm thinking it's only going to be a matter of time before the hits go out. Well, I kept this van for a year, and this van lasted me for a year. And even after a year, it still kept on going because I ultimately ended up selling it because I came up with enough money to be able to buy a better mode of transportation. So, anyhow, I would say, so yeah, so anyhow, I came in, I got my, so anyhow, there's one day, it was in 2000 and, it was, no, it was in, so anyhow, I got my discharge letter, and then ultimately, I finally got a settlement for my car accident, which I got later in 2009, which enabled me to sell my van and buy me a more, I'll just say, better mode of transportation, which was a Chevy Cavalier. It was a 2000 and it was a 2001 Chevy Cavalier. So the settlement money was enough to where I can do that, and I can possibly buy a house and pay cash. Now I was not able to buy a house and pay cash if I would have stayed in Tennessee. So I decided I decided to leave Tennessee and move back up to Ohio. 'Cause I'm thinking I'm from Ohio, my family up in Ohio. So at first I was looking at some houses in Columbus. I couldn't find anything in Columbus I wanted that was within my price range because I did not want to take out another loan. I couldn't because I was bankrupt. So my credit was trash anyway. I wanted to buy something and pay cash because I didn't want no debt. So I couldn't find nothing in Columbus. And now I'm thinking, where else can I look? Well, I looked in Cincinnati. And I found a couple of houses in Cincinnati, but I didn't care for the neighborhood. So it's like, Cincinnati's out. So then I looked in Toledo. No, yeah, I looked in Toledo and I found what I wanted in Toledo. And at this time, I had like $10,000 to work with. So I found something in Toledo and I was able to buy it. And I purchased it. I mean, this house was love at first sight. I loved everything about the house. And now at this time, I wasn't real concerned about the lot size. The lot size on this house was super small, but I loved the house. Even though the lot size was small, even though there's no parking. I had to park in the street. The house had no driveway. But I'm thinking, I, I'm buying this house. I'm paying cash, so there's not gonna be no debt. All I gotta do is worry about repair, maintenance, property taxes, some homeowners insurance, and I'm good to go. and I can get a job working at fast food if I had to, and still be and still be okay. At least I thought. Well, the city of Toledo, well, not the city of Toledo, but the Toledo's economy rather than turned me into a big liar, and at the same time, it also forced me to be. It also humbled me a lot. So ultimately, I packed up everything from my house in Tennessee, and I left Tennessee because I knew it was only going to be a matter of time before the bank on that house was going to tell me that, hey man, on such and such a date, I'm going to be up out of there, and then the sheriff's going to be knocking on the door, and I'm going to be up out of there. So I wanted to be up out of there long before all that transpired. So at this point, I got my hoopty van. I've been driving this van, you know what I'm saying, I sold the van, got me a better, more transportation, and now I'm buying me a house and I'm paying cash. I'm excited. I'm thinking, okay, my financial journey is taking a turn for the best. It's taking a turn for the better because now I'm getting sleep at night. I'm no longer tired all the time. I'm not taking out loans all the time from cash advance places, which was another thing I was doing for a while because I was that broke. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing good. That's what time it is. So when I purchased this house up in Toledo, obviously I moved in. I at the time I didn't have the funds to rent a U-Haul or hire movers, so I paid a little bit of money to borrow my neighbor's minivan. She was nice enough to allow me to use her minivan, so I made a few trips back and forth from Tennessee to Toledo using her minivan to move all my stuff into this house in Toledo. Now, granted, at that time of my life, I had less stuff than I have now. Now, there were certain pieces of things I had to leave back in Tennessee because I just couldn't fit it in her van. So I just gave it to her, and she was happy to take it. And it was kind of a payment for allowing me to use her van because he saved me a crap load of money doing it like that. So I moved into Toledo, and I immediately hit the ground looking for work, thinking I was gonna find something quick. Now I knew the economy was in trouble in Northern Ohio. I knew this, but I'm still thinking, you know what? I'm not real fussy about where I work. I'm not fussy about the money. I work at McDonald's and be okay. So I'm thinking I can at least find a job at McDonald's. It can't be that bad. Well, yeah, it was that bad. It was so bad that people couldn't even get a job at McDonald's. It was so bad at that time that you had a line going outside the door at McDonald's in Bowling Green at around this time just for a freaking interview. So it was bad. So anyhow, it took me 4 months for me to finally land a job in Toledo. But during this time, I had a little bit of money stashed away, left over, and that I was able to save. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. And I ran through every bit of that money because I had to use it to pay bills, get utilities cut on, and buy food. So I ran out of all my money before I landed my first job in Toledo. So another shameful and embarrassing time of my life was when I had to go to the Salvation Army to get my food. Rather than having money and going to the grocery store like I'm used to buy my food, I'm having to go to the local Salvation Army and I'm having to eat food that I typically don't eat because I was broke. I was out. Now, if I wanted to, I could have called my parents up and my parents would have helped me, but I didn't want to call my parents. I wanted to figure it out by myself because, that's what adults do. So my pride wouldn't allow me to call my parents, so I never called my parents. So I just went on ahead, ate whatever they gave me at the Salvation Army, and then ultimately, uh, let's see what's going on my phone here. Ultimately, Sorry about that. I just had to check my phone real quick. So ultimately, I decided to go to the unemployment center which is located by downtown Toledo. Because before I was going to the library to look for work, and then I thought, maybe there's extra resources at the employment resource center in Toledo. That's why I went. And the lady told me, yeah, they got resources. They got resources to help you pay your utility bills. They got resources to obviously they got job hunting resources, and and she told me, hey, you know what? You qualify. Most likely you'll qualify for food stamps. So there's an office that they have within this building. I went there and I decided to go ahead and get myself on some food stamps so I can eat. Again, I was embarrassed. I was just feeling just I was embarrassed. I was feeling less than a man. But I had to do what I had to do. I had to survive. So anyhow, I get on food stamps eventually, so now I can start eating better food than what they serve at the Salvation Army. So then I'm thinking, well, if I get some help to pay some utilities, I'll be good to go until I find me a job. So ultimately, I get accepted for utility bill assistance, which again, I'm appreciative, but at the same time, I'm embarrassed as hell. But it is what it is. Ultimately, I would say probably about a month after I got all these handouts, I land me a job as an apartment maintenance person. I mean, if there's like eight of us on the crew at that time because it is a super big apartment complex. It is a Section 8 apartment community in Savannah Township, which is west of Toledo. So we I was happy to have a job. We was all doing our thing, and that job only lasted for about a month, and then we all got let go because the owner of the complex, who was out of Chicago, I guess he didn't like how things were being ran. He didn't like how we was doing our job, so he let go of all of us, even including the property manager. He let go of the property manager. So that I mean, he let go of everybody. He let go of the whole staff, the whole crew. So we all lost our jobs. So I was without work again. And the money I was making wasn't enough to where I was able to save up any amount of money. 'Cause all the money I made went towards bills. Because as soon as you get a job, you're supposed to let you're supposed to let forgot who they were, but you're supposed to let the people that were helping you out on your utilities. You're supposed to let them know promptly that you got a job, which I did. So they cut me off of their assistance because I was making too much money to stay on their assistance. And plus, I had to let the food stamp people know, which, they were a little more, at that time, they were a little bit more lenient. They weren't going to cut me off right away, but they would have cut me off eventually, haven't I been able to keep that job, haven't me not got fired. So I went another couple of months without employment. And then 2 months later, uh, I got hired on at Walmart as an assembler. Now, the Walmart job was not full time, however. It was only a part time job. It was a 5 hour a day job, 20 hours a week, but it was better than sitting on my ass and not doing nothing at all. So I took the job. Well, the Walmart job didn't work out too well. To make a long story short, me and the supervisor did not see eye to eye at all. I mean, I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. Well, I'll just put it like this: me and the supervisor did not get along. I've had that job for 3 months, and the supervisor terminated me because, well, I will get into it a little bit. You know what? I was working as an assembler. I've never been a fast worker, never been. But we had a quota. We were supposed to put together. I think the quota was 10 bicycles a day, because that's mainly what I was supposed to put together. 10 bicycles a day, so many pieces of furniture and toys, and I was not meeting the quota. I tried, but I just couldn't. And on top of that, I would say like halfway through the shift, I had to stop what I was doing at this. I had to stop my assembling, and I had to go and help the. I had to go and help the stock people unload trucks. So okay, whatever it is, what it is. But then when the supervisor came at me and told me I wasn't meeting my quota, it's like no, because I gotta help these people over here unload trucks. So no, I'm not meeting my quota because I got other things I gotta do. And we got into an argument about that. We were going back and forth. Making a long story short, we never got along. We never saw eye to eye on nothing. So one day he calls me into the office, and again the shift is only half over, and he tells me, you know what, we're going to terminate you. You're not meeting your quota. You know, whatever, whatever. So I lose my job at Walmart after about 3 months. And I'm thinking, okay, well, at this point, I know the economy in Toledo's trash at that time. I didn't really care for Toledo. I do not like Toledo. I think the city's trash. So I decided, I'm gonna go ahead and put this house on the market and sell it. And that's exactly what I did. So the house I had in Toledo, I put it on the market, and you know, it took me it took me about a couple of months to sell the house from the day that I first put it on the market. Now I did lose money on the transaction. I mean, after realtor fees, I did lose a few $1,000s on the transaction, unfortunately. So, but as soon as I put the house, when I first put the house on the market in Toledo, I mean, because what happened was I lost my job on a Saturday, and Monday morning I called the realtor, put the house on the market on Tuesday morning. I decided to pack up my car, which was at the time a Chevy Cavalier, and I decided to, I had a couple of people tell me good things about Indiana. Let me go to Indiana and check them out. So I went over to Indianapolis, to be more specific, just to check out the economy in Indianapolis. Now at this point, it was 2010. So I go check out Indianapolis and see what's going on there. And and this now for some of you, when I'm getting ready to say it, it's going to sound kind of stupid, but it is what it is. So I go into Indianapolis. I get there on a Monday late afternoon. Now, when I get there, I don't have again, I have a little bit of money, but not a lot of money. I don't really have enough money to be spending on hotel stays and stuff. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna just live out of my car up here until I find, until I can do better. And that's what I did. I mean, when I first got to Indianapolis, I went there. I packed up some canned chicken, some peanut butter, jelly, a loaf of bread. I had a little bit of money, not much though. I packed up a couple of outfits for job interviews, and at the time, I decided, okay, well, I'll just go to the gym and go take a shower whenever I get done exercising, which is what I did. So I was up there when I was up there the first time around. I was up there for I want to say about a couple of weeks. Well, I was a little discouraged when I left Indianapolis at the first time because I didn't have a job. I was hoping to go back to Toledo with a job in Indianapolis, but at that time I didn't have a job. But I put in a crap load of applications. So I decided, you know what, let me get back to Toledo. Well, really, the reason why I went back to Toledo was because the realtor called me and she told me that, hey, man, you got an offer on your home. Do you accept it? So I told her to read me off what the offer was, and I was a little confused on what she was trying to say. So I decided to go back to Toledo just so I can look at the offer in person. So I looked at the offer. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. It's cool. It's all right. So I accepted the offer. And then I hang out in Toledo for about a good week. I visit family, and one of my neighbors had a party because it was Fourth of July weekend. So I went over there, hung out with them for a little bit, and after about a couple of weeks, I finally get a call from a job interview in Indianapolis. So I drive over back into Indianapolis, go to the job interview, and I decided, yeah, okay, I'll take the job. It's all good. It's not, I mean, it was a job working as a gas station clerk, which I really hate doing. But I was desperate, so I took the job. And then while I was in Indianapolis, I had another job interview. It was for CNA work I've done before. So I go to that interview and I take that job. But that job was actually full time with some benefits. So I take that job instead. And then I went to the other place and I told them, you know what, I appreciate you offering me the position, but I'm gonna pass on it. And I left it like that. So I took the job as a CNA. It was in Indianapolis, working at a behavioral center. And once I knew that I was gonna be, starting that job, at this point, I went back to Toledo and visit family again, and I also decided to empty out my house and get it ready for sale because I got the job in Toledo. The offer is then on my house, and I accepted it, so I knew at some point the house was going to get sold. So I decided to just go to Indianapolis and start working. And until I get my money, I'm gonna live out of my car. So I'm thinking, okay, as soon as I get my money from the sale of my house, I'm gonna get me an apartment. I'm gonna be good. But until then, I'm gonna be about my car. So when I went back to Indianapolis to go to work, I lived out of my car. There was a parking lot off of West 71st right by McDonald's that I always used to go and sleep at. I felt safe there, and I got myself familiar with that particular area. So I want to say maybe a month later, I finally closed on my house in Toledo and get it sold. I get the check, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to go look for an apartment now. Well, guess what I did? I decided to take that check, and I just, you know what? I'm gonna just put it away in the bank. I'm not looking for no apartment. I don't feel like it because because at this time, I'm thinking, well, what if I want to move somewhere else? What if I want to take off and go back down south? What if I want to move? Because at this time, I was even considering moving to Houston, Texas, which I'm glad I didn't do. But at the time, I was considering it. It's like, let me go ahead and take this money and just kind of sit on this money for a little bit. And that's what I did. So I ended up living in my car until it got cold outside, until it got to the point where it began to get uncomfortable overnight sleeping in my car because it started getting cold. So I would say around late fall, early winter of 2010, I get an apartment. So as far as me being homeless, the time that I was homeless was from, and like I told you guys, and my homelessness was very brief. I was homeless from August to, if I can remember correctly, I was homeless from August to November. So I was homeless for about three to 3.5 months, give or take. So that is my journey. That is my financial journey, if you will, slash my journey to So that's my story, rather, of how I became homeless during the last recession. So yeah, when I sold my house, I didn't spend that money right away. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna just continue to sleep in my car until it gets so cold that I'm uncomfortable and I need to have shelter, like a sticks and bricks type of deal. Now, honestly, at that time, had I known about van life, I would have probably got. I no, I would have got me a minivan and just kind of like what I showed you guys on my minivan on my video of how I got my van all set up for living out of. I would have had that kind of a setup or one very similar back then, having I known what I know now. But unfortunately, back then I didn't know what I know now. So my dumb ass got an apartment and ended up paying rent. Which at that time rent was a lot cheaper though. But yeah, so yeah, ultimately around November, I finally gave in and got myself an apartment. So hopefully you got. I mean, I know this video was long. I know the story was long, but I feel that it was necessary for me to tell you this story to understand, I guess, where I come from and why I think the way I think today. And I'm hoping you guys got something out of my story. I'm hoping you guys got a couple of lessons out of it or something. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it. We're already about 45 minutes in. So if you like what I do, give videos like this a thumbs up. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. And on that note, stay blessed. Have a good rest of the day. I'll catch you guys on the next one.